On a splendid day, Earth was suddenly boarded by alien ships, and it was evident they came to invade. We meet the protagonist, Ataru, who at that moment chased Shinobu, his beloved, to beg for forgiveness for looking at other girls. Just as Shinobu would give another chance, he looked at a passing girl, so Shinobu dealt a strong punch directly to his face. While Ataru felt discouraged, a monk approached, thinking wrongly that Ataru would jump from a bridge, and tried stopping him, only to push him accidentally into the river. After returning to shore, Ataru explained the misunderstanding, and the monk, after examining him, said Ataru had terrible fortune and was nearing a great misfortune. Ataru did not believe him and moved away, but the monk introduced himself as Cherry, a wandering monk. Just after that, Ataru's mother and Shinobu arrived to tell him that something really happened. Government agents surrounded him immediately to take him away. Back at home, Ataru met the leader of the alien Oni, who said he made a deal with Earth's government. Both sides would hold a contest, and Ataru was chosen to represent Earth. If Ataru won, the aliens would leave Earth in peace and retreat. The chosen game was tag. Just after that, Lum appeared, the daughter of the Oni leader. The leader said Ataru would have to play tag with Lum, and if he managed to touch her horns in 10 days, he would be declared the winner. Ataru, being someone with womanizing impulses, was repudiated by Shinobu, but still saw this as his duty to save Earth. The following day, he went to the stadium to start the pursuit with Lum, and was surprised to discover that Lum could fly, making it impossible to touch her. For 4 days, Ataru chased her without making any progress. The next 5 days passed just as fast, and Ataru still could not get close to Lum. His parents feared that Ataru would be cursed for life if he lost, but Cherry noticed a great misfortune surrounding Ataru and asked about his past. His parents revealed that he was born on a Friday the 13th. There was an earthquake during his birth and a black cat jumped over him. Misfortunes seemed to follow him from the very beginning. That night, Ataru felt completely hopeless, ready to accept a life of darkness, thinking he had 0 chances of beating Lum. But Shinobu promised that if he won, she would marry him. This gave Ataru a new motivation, and he promised to do his best on the last day. On that final day, Ataru put all his energy into chasing Lum. Lum, underestimating him a bit, let her guard down, and he managed to grab her by the leg. But then Ataru discovered that Lum had a power similar to an electric mouse. She could fire electricity and shocked him until he was unconscious. However, his motivation to marry made him get up and continue chasing her. Then, in a moment of brilliance, he grabbed Lum's top garment. She got angry and shocked him again, but now Ataru had the advantage since Lum had to chase him to get her clothes back. He took that opportunity to throw the garment upward and slipped behind her, grabbing her horns and securing an unexpected victory. But upon receiving the prize, Ataru kept shouting about marriage, which made Lum think he was proposing to her, so she accepted. The Oni leader saw that his daughter had made a decision. Therefore, he immediately accepted Ataru as his son-in-law. Shinobu became furious, called Ataru a traitor, and left. The next day, Ataru realized he had become a hero who saved the world and was ready to go look for girls. But Lum appeared and forbade him from flirting. She decided to stay on Earth with Ataru instead of going home with her father. However, after a few days, Ataru could not get in touch with Shinobu to reconcile, as Lum kept interrupting. So he decided to separate from Lum and kicked her out. Lum became enraged, shocked Ataru, and left. But even after she left, Ataru still could not contact Shinobu because Lum kept finding ways to interfere with his phone signal. After a while, Shinobu finally answered his call again, and Ataru asked her to simply ignore what Lum said. Lum, extremely angry, amplified the signal from her spaceship to ruin their conversation. The situation between the three caused an interruption in the signal zone, preventing many planes from passing through there. As a result, Ataru decided to go see her in person. Lum, however, still had ways to sabotage him, this time invoking storm clouds and lightning. But Ataru's father gave him a rubber raincoat to protect himself against the electricity. Cherry also followed him, hoping to witness Ataru's final moments. But his presence only made things more dangerous for Ataru, so Ataru had to send him flying out of sight first. Lum intensified the lightning when she saw that Shinobu was also looking for Ataru, causing a blackout in the entire area. However, even that did not stop Ataru and Shinobu. Then Lum steered her entire spaceship toward the ground. Just as Ataru and Shinobu finally found each other, the spaceship was about to crash. After confirming that the two were safe, Ataru went back to look for Shinobu, but Lum played another trick right in front of Shinobu. Once again, Shinobu felt that Ataru was playing with her, gave him a lesson, and left. Meanwhile, city authorities arrived at Ataru's house demanding compensation for the damages suffered in the town. A few days later, Ataru returned to school, but his presence annoyed the whole class and the teacher because Lum kept sticking to him. Shinobu was the most annoyed and ended up being the only one to give Ataru a beating. After that, Ataru fled from home. Lum and her family went on television to issue a notice asking him to return. Even Shinobu spoke, and Ataru, who now attracted everyone's attention, was forced to leave quickly. As soon as he left a restaurant, he ran into a woman. Finding her beautiful, his libidinous side activated again, but she told him that it was precisely that type of personality that kept bringing him bad luck. Then she introduced herself as a shrine maiden and claimed she had a way to lift his curse. Ataru noticed she looked unwell, so he helped her back home. She pointed him toward the shrine where she lived. Upon arriving, he met her mother and learned her name was Sakura. Her mother had a strange resemblance to the monk Cherry, so Ataru fled, but Sakura told her mother to catch him. Her mother tied him up and dragged him inside so Sakura could perform the ritual to remove bad luck. They threw him into a room full of talismans, and Sakura entered shortly after. Suddenly, she had a toothache and tried to finish the ritual quickly so she could go to the hospital. But in the middle of the chant, a horde of spirits appeared and clung to Ataru. Sakura then had a migraine and could not concentrate on the spell. After a while, the spirits unexpectedly left Sakura and clung completely to Ataru, making her feel healthy again. Once recovered, she created a black hole to suck out the spirits attached to Ataru. Just as the spirits were eliminated, the Reaper suddenly appeared to take Ataru's soul. He was hospitalized, and both his family and the two girls believed he had passed away. But when a nurse entered, Ataru woke up instinctively and began to flirt. Clearly, everyone had worried too much. Ataru immediately gave her a sample of what it is like to live in a demilitarized zone. A few days later, tired of living in his own house as if he were in a prison camp, Ataru went to look for Cherry to ask him to seal Lum's powers. But Lum was hidden nearby and heard everything, so she chased him and gave him a beating. A few days after that, a friend went to Ataru's house to deliver something. He said that Cherry had asked him to pass it on. Inside was a letter saying that Cherry had made a ribbon that, if tied to Lum's horns, would seal her powers and only Ataru could remove it. When Lum returned, Ataru tricked her into believing the ribbon was for decoration. She happily let him tie it. Later, when she wanted to take a walk, she realized she could no longer fly. She tried to hold the hand of one of Ataru's friends to give him a shock, but it had no effect. Knowing he had succeeded, Ataru went out. Lum thought she might be sick or something. Shinobu passed by chance and saw the two acting intimately in broad daylight. Worse, she heard that Ataru had given 2 ribbons to Lum, although he had never given her anything. She had even planned to bake something, but now, disappointed, she turned around and left. Ataru tried to explain, but it only made Shinobu even angrier. When they returned home, 2 of Ataru's friends asked to stay to protect Lum from him, fearing that now that Lum had lost her powers, Ataru could become a beast and hurt her. But Ataru expelled both from the room. Lum, now without powers, tried to get close to Ataru and stay by his side for safety, but Ataru did not like it and reconsidered removing the ribbon. However, Lum refused, saying it was a gift from him. When his friends heard the argument inside the room, they climbed through the window, not wanting to be interrupted. Lum kicked them both out. In the process, she accidentally threw the box containing Cherry's letter, and one of the friends read it, realizing the truth about the ribbon. He exposed everything, which caused Lum to scratch Ataru and demand that he take it off. With no other choice, Ataru complied. As soon as Lum regained her powers, she gave Ataru a high-voltage shock. Cherry, feeling bad luck, fled to Sakura's house to hide. A few days later, Ataru's class welcomed a new transfer student named Shutaro, the heir of a large corporation. On his first day, he arrived at school in a private helicopter. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, Shinobu was about to break a desk over Ataru's head for bothering her first thing in the morning. Just as she threw the desk out the window, she noticed an umbrella outside. The whole school gathered and met Shutaro. He introduced himself, and Shinobu apologized for hitting him with the desk. She began to fall in love with Shutaro and ignored Ataru completely. When Shutaro arrived in class, the girls noticed him instantly. He quickly focused on Ataru, thinking he was bothering Shinobu. He also met Lum and believed she was wasting her youth by marrying a fool like Ataru, but Lum firmly defended Ataru. The teacher then told the class to choose a class president. Shutaro ran and was supported by the girls. He declared that, as class president, he would build a punishment room for those who arrived late and would personally handle students who were absent or left early. Although extreme, the rules did not apply to girls, so the boys protested and nominated Ataru as his rival. During the vote, the result was a tie, as the number of boys and girls was equal. Shutaro refused to accept it and demanded a duel with Ataru. He brought a cannon and intended to shoot an apple on Ataru's head. Clearly an idiotic idea, so he threw a glove to challenge Ataru to a martial arts duel. Ataru, being skilled at dodging, kept avoiding all the gloves and even used substitution techniques to escape. Eventually, Ataru was cornered on the rooftop. Just then, Lum passed by and caught the glove, forcing her to fight instead of Ataru. She quickly electrocuted and defeated Shutaro, granting the victory to Ataru. Shutaro saw himself as a disgrace and wanted to perform a ritual of repentance, but the girls stopped him and offered him the position of vice president instead. A few days later, Shutaro began to reflect on Lum. He still did not understand the electrifying feeling he felt when he was near her. Lum was looking for Ataru and learned he was alone with Shinobu, so she ran out to find them. She ran into Shutaro and soon fell right where Ataru and Shinobu were standing. Shinobu, pinned under Shutaro, was delighted and ran out, with Ataru chasing her. Shutaro realized he might have fallen in love with Lum, thus forming a 4-way love triangle. The next day, the school organized a field trip for Ataru's class. During a break, Shutaro announced that there was a cave nearby and invited Lum to explore it. She dragged Ataru, and he dragged Shinobu with him. The two boys planned to separate and go separately with the girls they liked, while the two girls had the same idea. At a fork inside the cave, Shutaro turned off the lights to force a separation. However, However, both girls ended up with the right person. Later, when the group gathered and faced another split, Shutaro turned off the lights again, but this time the two girls ended up separating from the two boys. Upon separating from the girls, Shutaro revealed his true nature. As someone who was afraid of the dark, he kept clinging to Ataru's leg until the two girls found them, and only then did he regain his confidence. Ataru tested this and realized that Shutaro only put on airs in front of girls. However, the real problem now was that they were lost and did not know how to get out. The flashlight battery ran out at that moment, so Lum used her electricity to light up the area, but she accidentally activated a ship buried under the cave, which made it drill a hole directly toward the surface and fly out. Their teacher in the class noticed the group below and luckily managed to rescue them. Another day, Ataru's group invited each other to play tennis. Shutaro was disgusted because Lum ended up on Ataru's team. Lum did not want to lose to Shinobu, so she flew and gave a powerful hit. Meanwhile, on a mountain, a group of crows carried some kind of device to Earth. They were the ones who had dropped the machine that Lum accidentally activated in the cave last time. Lum's tennis ball unexpectedly hit one of the crows on the head, causing the device to fall directly onto the tennis court and land on Shutaro. Ataru was surprised to see that inside the device was a beautiful girl. The crows appeared and tried to wake up the old man, but he was unconscious, so they took the opportunity to give him a beating for exploiting their work. After regaining consciousness, the old man realized that Shutaro was exactly the type of man his princess liked. He explained that he and Princess Kurama, currently inside the capsule, were from a planet outside the galaxy. Their planet no longer had men, so they were forced to travel here to find males and save their people. The crows wanted Shutaro to kiss the princess to wake her up, but he was too shy, so Ataru tried to do it instead. Lum, naturally, did not allow that and tied up Ataru. Just when Shutaro was about to carry out the act, Shinobu stopped him. This gave Ataru the chance to free himself and jump to kiss the princess. However, when the princess woke up, the first person she saw was Shutaro, so she assumed he was the one who kissed her. The crows decided to keep the truth secret so that the princess could have a sweet dream. When Ataru tried to claim credit, Lum shocked him into the sky. A few days later, Lum went to see the crows, thinking they intended to take Ataru away. But all the crows supported Kurama's love and decided to keep the secret. Only the old man wanted to follow the law and have Ataru marry the princess, since he was the one who kissed her. Lum did not like that idea, so she decided to cooperate with the crows. At that moment, while Ataru was in class, Kurama appeared. They tied up the old man so he could not interfere. Kurama now wanted to create a new life with Shutaro, but Ataru claimed he was the one who kissed her. Before he could finish, the crows put a gag on him and tied him up. The crows explained the situation to Shutaro and told him he only needed to sleep with the princess for one night if he hesitated. Ataru could take the opportunity again. Shutaro accepted, but Shinobu opposed, so the crows had to silence her in the same way. The princess wanted to speed things up, so the crows and Lum built a room for the two to act. The girls in class could not accept that Shutaro now belonged to someone else. Shutaro was left alone later with the princess, but kept trembling and did not dare proceed. The old man also arrived to reveal everything, which surprised the princess. Now, Ataru and Shutaro represented two opposite ideas, one of following the law and another of following the heart. The princess wanted to know what the punishment would be for breaking the law, but the old man only knew what was passed down and had no idea of the consequences. So they installed a machine to contact the crow elders of previous generations. When asked, each elder said only the generation before them told them. After a while, they decided to go directly to the first ancestor of the crow race. He told them the story of his own love and admitted that he had only made up the law based on his personal experience. There was really no consequence. The princess got so angry that she broke the machine. At that moment, Shutaro confidently believed that the princess could now form a bond with him without worrying about the rules anymore. But Ataru showed him that Shutaro was nothing more than a weakling when trapped in the dark. Shutaro's image completely collapsed, and the princess then decided to go look for a new lover somewhere in the universe. Since there were no longer rules tying her, she was now free to be greedy and choose a life partner. A few days later, Ataru suddenly saw Cherry roasting fish at the school gate, so he asked what he was doing there. Cherry said he had just brought someone, and Ataru's friends told him that the school had just received an incredibly beautiful nurse. Ataru ran to see her, only to be surprised that it was Sakura. Shutaro had already arrived before him and proposed to Sakura, which caused the rest of the boys to also jump in to fight for her hand. Of course, they all ended up being beaten and kicked out by Sakura. Later, some teachers approached Sakura to ask for help with a specific matter. They needed her to exercise a pair of cursed gloves, but then Cherry suddenly burst in, chasing a cat that had just stolen his fish. Sakura kicked him out, but accidentally threw one of the gloves. Lum, who had flown to school, found it and took it to Ataru to ask him about it. When he put it on, the gloves suddenly took control of him and made him hug anyone who was nearby, from Lum to Shinobu, and then the rest of the schoolgirls. Shutaro accused Ataru of using the glove as an excuse to justify his indecent behavior, but the glove also made him hug Shutaro. Shutaro shivered in disgust at being touched and drew his sword, demanding to give Ataru a beating. Ataru had to push him, and just then Sakura arrived and explained that the glove was cursed and would make the wearer hug anyone, even their enemies. The other glove had the opposite effect. Whoever wore it would knock out everyone within reach, including friends. Ataru ended up using both gloves, hugged his wife with one hand, while the other hand was about to become abusive, but then he used his own face to take the hit. This gave Sakura an idea. She set up a ring and put Ataru and Lum inside to do what they wanted, so Ataru hugged his wife while repeatedly punching himself in the face. He finally knocked himself out and the gloves were removed as the curse lifted. Afterwards, Ataru hugged Sakura and pretended the gloves still controlled him, so she put it on and gave him a beating. A few days later, the boys in Ataru's class became jealous that Shutaro received more and more love letters from girls, so they devised a plan to take him down. They decided to forge a love letter and send it to Ataru, hoping it would cause the two to compete and eliminate each other. After writing a fake letter, they even kissed it and delivered it to Ataru. When Ataru heard that a pretty girl had sent him a love letter, he got excited and read it out loud. It was full of insults toward Shutaro. Shutaro took a look at the letter and, seeing that the writing seemed childish, did not believe the girl who wrote it actually existed. After Lum found out Ataru received a love letter, she became jealous and jumped into Shutaro's arms to make Ataru jealous in turn. But Ataru fully supported the two being together. Shutaro and Ataru then made a bet to see if the girl who sent the letter was real. The group of boys who planned this decided to go all the way, so they hired a girl to pretend to be the writer of the letter for an hour. The next day, Ataru received a meeting request and was anxious to meet his admirer. Lum still tried to make him jealous, saying she would go with Shutaro, but now the boys panicked because the girl they hired sent them a message saying her stomach hurt and she could not go. Lum heard everything and decided to let Ataru be humiliated for once. That afternoon, Ataru and the boys met at the meeting place, while Lum stood firm in her decision not to help him. They waited almost an hour and Shutaro finally said he would only wait another 15 minutes. If no one appeared, Ataru would be considered the loser and would have to give up his position as class president. And if Shutaro became class president, everyone knew what would happen. At that moment, Lum could not stand to see Ataru mocked anymore, so she decided to pretend to be the writer of the letter and went to meet him. At first, when they met, both Ataru and the boys were stunned, but when Ataru recognized Lum, she told him to go along with it if he wanted to save face. The two left together and Lum explained everything to Ataru. For the first time, he realized that Lum had always been this adorable. Lum was about to fly back first, but Ataru grabbed her hand so they could walk together a little longer. A few days later, Ataru was excited to go home and eat stew with his family, but as soon as he reached his room, Lum had already changed clothes and told Ataru to accompany her to her hometown to attend the annual festival since she had already prepared a space portal there. As soon as they arrived at his wife's hometown, Ataru was immersed in battle. It looked like a serious war, but in reality it was just a ball-throwing competition. Meanwhile, Ataru's parents waited for him at home to eat stew, but when he did not appear, they feared he had been led astray by bad company. Ataru, on the other hand, noticed a pretty girl and climbed a pole to try to talk to her. Lum told him the girl was 10, her childhood cousin, and that she could not allow Ataru to flirt with her relative. Ataru's parents ended up eating all the stew themselves without saving him anything. Suddenly, they heard Ataru's voice echoing faintly in the air. At that moment, Cherry appeared and predicted that Ataru had gone to the underworld, thinking he had passed away. His parents believed it, especially since they had been hearing his voice. Meanwhile, Ataru was making Lum angry, and Ten also joined in to scold him. Out of jealousy, Lum knocked down all the balls, making her team lose. Cherry then ate the stew Ataru's mother had made, and she asked him to hold a prayer ceremony for Ataru. Ataru was then chosen to be punished for making his wife's team lose. Cherry showed Ataru's parents a vision of him being punished by demons, which convinced them even more that he was being tormented for leading a bad life. A few days later, Ataru returned but caught a cold, so his friends went to visit him, although most of the boys came just to see Lum. But Lum was not home at that moment. Suddenly, Cherry arrived and felt an evil presence nearby. Ataru's closet suddenly exploded with snow and a girl appeared. Cherry recognized her as an Oyuki, a snow spirit. She said she had something urgent to attend to beyond the closet portal and needed someone to accompany her. The whole group followed her, including Ataru. On the other side of the door was Neptune, the snow girl's home. She took them to a hole and jumped in. Shutaro pushed Ataru first to test the way. There, Ataru reunited with Lum, who told him the snow girl was Oyuki, her friend. Oyuki was a princess and had many maids. When they saw Ataru's group, they asked for help because all the men there had been sent as migrant workers, so there were no workers left to shovel snow, while Shutaro and the other boys shoveled. Oyuki took off her outer clothes, which excited Ataru, but Lum shocked him again, forcing him to flee and colliding with Oyuki. She noticed Ataru seemed sick, so she took him to her room. Oyuki was quite free-spirited and was willing to steal Lum's man if she liked him, but then a snow creature burst in and interrupted. He was one of Oyuki's servants and did not like anyone, especially men, getting close to her. The snowman chased Ataru, forcing him to flee back to the hole, and he had no choice but to jump, reappearing on his own rooftop. The media arrived soon after discovering the snowman grabbing Ataru on the roof, and the news of Ataru and the snowman quickly hit headlines. After recovering, Ataru asked Lum to close close the portal. They also noticed Shutaro had been missing for a while. It turned out that all this time they had exploited him to work, and he had been shoveling snow on Neptune without knowing. Not much later, Ataru's class officially entered summer vacation and finished the semester. As they left, Ataru stood before the class and declared that he wanted to surrender. The teacher asked if he was sure and said many things as if Ataru's decision would affect his future. The teacher thought Ataru planned to drop out because of his terrible grades. Shutaro stepped forward and claimed that Ataru was trying to resign from his position as protagonist, so everyone volunteered to become the new protagonist of the series. Cherry and Sakura also arrived to compete for the role. Lum's friends also came to introduce themselves, along with many other characters. But Ataru then announced that he only wanted to resign from his position as class president, nothing more. A few days later, Ataru and everyone else went to the pool to have fun. In fact, it was a pool Shutaro's family had bought, but Ataru only saw the boys in swimsuits as a bunch of talking vegetables. Lum and Shinobu also arrived later, and Sakura found the group as noisy as ever. Ataru, being insensitive, ran toward her, and Sakura knocked him into the pool with a punch. Lum watched the pool for a good while without seeing Ataru come to the surface, so she dove in to look for him. She discovered that Ataru was being invited by a Yukai under the pool, but Ataru had trouble breathing, so Lum went down instead. The Yukai did not realize and thought Ataru had become a cute girl. After coming to the surface, Ataru told everyone what was under the pool, but no one believed him. They thought he was trying to spread false rumors to ruin the reputation of the place. Sakura still wanted to check. Meanwhile, the Yukai, realizing he was running out of tea at home, came to the surface to buy some. Since no one was blind, they quickly discovered him. Ataru's group then went down to take a look. Just as the Yukai had left his house, which made them even more sure Ataru was lying, but the Yukai returned later to greet the visitors upon seeing so many guests. Shutaro, recognizing him, immediately demanded that he leave. He and the others quickly ran to the surface for air. Shutaro then insisted on kicking the Yukai out, even though he only wanted to live in peace. But since the place was not his home, he had no right to stay. Ataru and Lum hoped he would find a better new place to live. That night, back at home, Ataru discovered that the Yukai had moved into his bathroom. After a month, Ataru's mother decided to kick the Yukai out of the house because he could not keep camping in the bathroom forever. Ataru then had to help him find a new place to stay, and his mother promised to send him supplies once he had found a new home. Then he took him to the beach. Ataru accompanied him later to another place to look for a site to live. At the same time, Sakura and her boyfriend went on a date at a restaurant by the sea. The restaurant held a food challenge, and for the first time we saw how huge Sakura's appetite was, from a giant bowl of noodles to a multi-pound steak. Ataru then chose a quiet place for the Yukai to jump into. He began to feel lonely when Ataru left, but unexpectedly Sakura and her boyfriend appeared. The Yukai was going to go greet them, but Ataru stopped him because he did not want to interrupt the date. At the same time, Lum's group watched from a distance. During that, a boy passed in front of Ataru and thought he had a very cute pet. Sakura and her boyfriend were about to kiss when she felt someone watching them. The whole group had to hide so she would not suspect, but just when she thought it was her imagination and was about to continue, the Yukai appeared next to them to watch. Ataru quickly dragged him away so Sakura could continue, but there was no way she would let him go that easily. Meanwhile, the boy still did not know where to leave his pet. The Yukai and Ataru's group then sat on the beach to eat. While they ate, the Yukai began to complain about his hardships to provoke guilt in the group. The boy saw them and hoped they would take care of his pet. Just after, Ataru came up with the idea of putting the Yukai in a box. The boy saw Ataru's group holding the box and thought his pet had been adopted, but then he changed his mind and ran back for the box. Shinobu, noticing the box, realized the boy was mistaken. However, inside the box was actually Cherry, and the whole group realized they had just picked up a creepy old man. Sometime later, the Yukai sent a photo to Ataru's house to let them know he lived well with the boy who had adopted him. When summer ended, Ataru returned to school, and today the principal informed Ataru's teacher that they would have a transfer student again, and that student turned out to be Lum. Her father also came later to complete the registration paperwork for her. The teacher was quite puzzled, as it was his first time, but since Lum had already gotten used to the school environment for a long time, there would be no problem. When Ataru heard there was a new exchange student, he was anxious to check it out, but as soon as Lum appeared, he choked from the shock. He struggled desperately asking for help that no one understood and then collapsed on the floor. Later, when they went to the field for the sports festival, Ataru heard the class next door also had a new exchange student. He immediately noticed that girl and approached to talk to her, learning her name was Ran. Seeing her husband flirting again with another girl, Lum pulled him away and told Ran to meet her behind the gym later. Ran accepted and went to meet her. Then we learned that Lum and Ran. However, this sweet and kind image of Ran was actually a false identity she created to live in peace at school. Ran then reminisced about the past with Lum and revealed her true nature. Both Ran and Lum used to dream of an ideal boy they both liked, but Lum got engaged first, which deeply disappointed Ran. As a result, Ran vowed to steal Lum's husband through her kiss, which could suck the life force of others. Ran wanted Lum to keep her alien identity secret, or else she would reveal a shameful secret secret from Lum's past. The first test of the sports festival was an obstacle race after running a distance. Participants had to pick up a card and find the object described on it. Shutaro was asked to find an electrifying beauty, while Ron called Ataru. Lum was dragged by Shutaro, so Ron took Ataru behind the gym and tried to kiss him. However, Lum arrived in time to interrupt and took Ataru away. The second test was a cavalry battle. Ataru still tried to find a way to kiss Ran, and as soon as he found his target, he charged toward her. Lum tried to stop him, but Ran also headed toward Ataru. Of course, the other boys did not want Ataru to take Ran, so they also tried to block him. However, Ran intentionally fell toward Ataru, forcing Lum to push someone else to take the impact instead. The poor guy who was kissed immediately lost his youthful energy and became an old man who quietly pruned plants. That afternoon, Lum and Ran sat by the river to talk and look at the stars. In the past, the two had seen shooting stars together and had wished for a good husband, but when Lum moved away, Ran realized the boy she liked actually had feelings for Lum. That was why she wanted to steal Lum's husband as revenge. Lum found one of Ran's dolls there. It informed her that Ran would hold a farewell party this weekend because she would leave soon, and wanted both Lum and Ataru to attend. The doll said Ran did not want Lum to hate her, and only wanted to spend the time she had left with her. Lum later found a map, and when the weekend arrived, she and Ataru went to Ron's house. Ataru still did not know Ron was an alien, so upon arriving he thought her house was designed like a UFO. He gave flowers to Ran, so she put them in a vase that was clearly a living creature. She forbade it from eating the flowers and then offered them cookies. Lum knew the cookies had sleeping pills, so while Ran went to the kitchen, she poured the cookies into the vase's mouth, which effectively fell asleep. When Ran returned, she quickly realized what happened and also brought a cake. Lum volunteered to wash the dishes and wanted to see if Ran tried anything with Ataru behind her back, but contrary to her expectations, Ran rejected Ataru's advances. Ran then went back to the kitchen and told Lum to come out again. However, Lum noticed Ran was baking something in the oven. When she returned, Ataru had disappeared. What Ran had baked was a clone of Ataru. She pushed the fake Ataru next to the real one. When the two looked at each other, they started to move like reflections in a mirror. The seal used to distinguish the two was suddenly changed by the real Ataru, which made Ran return the real one to Lum and then go look for the fake one to kiss him. When she realized she had just kissed the clone, Ran became furious. That night, Lum thought Ran had returned and felt a bit of regret. But the next day at school, Lum ran into Ran again, and Ran was still determined to take revenge before returning. Once again, Lum did not understand why Ran was so unpredictable. A few days later, Cherry suddenly sensed that something bad was about to happen, and just after, his soup also. So Cherry hoped nothing too terrible would happen. At that moment, Lum saw Ataru diligently cleaning his room because Shinobu was coming to visit. He claimed he had invited Shinobu only to deal with class matters as president, but Lum knew well how flirtatious Ataru was. Cherry then came to try to warn Ataru of the bad luck he would have tonight, but Ataru did not bother to listen, despite Cherry advising him to flee soon. However, Ataru would only flee if Shinobu went with him. Shinobu, who was already on her way to Ataru's house, was suddenly struck by lightning right in front of her and a monster appeared. Meanwhile, Ataru kept ignoring Cherry's warning and sat by the window waiting for Shinobu. His mother had also seen the same monster that looked like a large cat. Ataru's mother was much more than a monster. Suddenly, she floated up to the window like a ghost, but she was still alive and brought with her the monster she had found because it kept screaming Lum's name. That tiger monster then transformed into a human, and it turned out to be someone Lum liked in the past. Ataru's mother heard the noise and came up to see what was happening and saw the guest. Even she was seduced by Lum's former fiancé, Ray. Ataru then advised Lum to go home with her ex-fiancé, Ray, because clearly Ray was much more attractive than Ataru. But there must have been a reason why Lum left Ray in the first place. It was because Ray could not control his emotions and became a beast every time he got excited. Ataru's mother brought food for everyone, and Ataru noticed she had put on makeup to impress the handsome guest. Ray kissed her hand, which made her blush and run away. Ataru's father, seeing that scene, felt hurt and left. Lum explained that Ray was only tasting the food stuck to her hand, not trying to seduce her. Lum then rejected and strongly criticized Ray. Shinobu thought Ray was crying from sadness, but in reality he was just moved by the delicious food. Ray did not understand human language very well, so he pulled out a scroll to read a love confession to Lum, but Lum rejected him firmly and insulted him while clinging to Ataru, which made Ray angry and transform into a beast to chase Ataru through the local streets. Ataru had to run out of the house and take refuge in a park. While chasing him, Ray did not stop confessing his love for Lum, which made many couples in the park break up because the girls thought Ray was declaring himself to them. But however important it was to confess to Lum, Ray did not forget to stop by the street food stalls and devour everything. Ataru's mother realized that although her husband was sad and hurt, he still depended on her because he did not know how to cook. When Ataru returned home, his mother went out to greet him, but heard Ray's love confession and said that if it were not for taking care of her husband and her son, she would have gone with Ray. But as soon as they returned, Ray appeared suddenly to cause trouble again, but his main goal was still Lum. Ray sowed chaos in the entire class, and when Shutaro learned it was Lum's fiancé, he wanted wanted to challenge him immediately. Naturally, Ataru and Lum let Shutaro handle the matter on his own and ran outside. Ran, hearing a familiar sound, pulled Lum away to talk. Ran wanted Lum to help her get Rei to notice her. Meanwhile, Shinobu had calmed Rei, and he transformed back into a human. Seeing a handsome boy, the girls immediately gathered to give him food, and for the first time, Shutaro lost to another boy in terms of charm. Shinobu then reminded Rei of his true purpose, and Rei shot off to find Ataru to ask him about Lum and her whereabouts. But Lum had returned and made Rei collide directly with Ran. Ran offered Rei food she had prepared herself, and Rei sat and ate quietly. Lum wanted Rei to understand Ran's sincerity, but it was clear that asking someone with a beast instinct to understand a girl's emotions was asking too much. But at least Rei ate Ran's food calmly, instead of voraciously like with others. Cherry also came then to give Rei some food to show he could do the same. Ran did not want to lose, so she brought another box for Rei. After finishing the food, Rei told Cherry he was still hungry, so he returned. Ran hoped Rei would return, but Lum did not. That afternoon, when they returned home, Ataru and Lum were surprised to find that Rei had stayed at their house. That night, Ataru's mother informed her husband that she could not keep trying alone and handed him a form. Ataru's father thought it was a divorce paper, but in reality it was a class observation form for Ataru, since class visits were exhausting. This time, the father would have to go. Meanwhile, somewhere in space, Lum's mother also received the class observation form, which somehow the school had managed to send to her. On the day of observation, Ataru's mother had to go anyway because his father refused. The reason he did not want to go was that every time he did, Ataru did something stupid and embarrassed her. She hoped not to run into anyone she knew, but Shinobu's mother recognized her and spoke to her. Later that day, a horse carriage arrived at the school. School staff told the butler not to bring animals on campus. The butler tried to explain who his lady was, but then Lum's mother's spaceship began to descend, creating a great roar. The spaceship crushed the horse carriage, and the butler panicked, thinking his lady had been crushed, but she was safe. Lum's mother came out and noticed her mother-in-law below and went to greet her, although she did not understand human language. Lum saw the situation below and flew down to escort her mother. The other woman was Shutaro's mother, who felt insulted by Lum's mother and angry that her beloved horse carriage had been destroyed. She hated machines and loved the carriage. She looked quite upset. She told Shutaro and Lum to translate her words, saying she wanted to settle that debt with Lum's mother. However, Lum mistranslated and made her mother believe destroying the carriage was a good thing. Shutaro's mother then threw a glove to challenge Lum's mother to a duel, but Lum's mother did not understand it. Lum then translated it, and while everyone else felt the tension rising, Lum's mother thought they had just proposed marriage to her. Lum's mother said they had just pushed her. The school bell rang and everyone went home. The teacher, who had been sick, finally crawled to school, saw the spaceship and the horse carriage, and thought his illness made him have hallucinations. Meanwhile, Ataru's mother called him to wake up and go home. Ataru was disappointed because that day he had no chance to show off. The next day, Lum woke Ataru again. On the way to school, Lum noticed the trees changing color. Ataru guessed the leaves would turn red in about a week. He took a yo-yo to school to show off to the girls, while Lum sewed something to give to Ataru. Shutaro thought that if Ataru kept acting like a fool, Lum would dedicate less time to him. But Ataru did not care and kept doing stupid things. That night, Lum finished her gift, but Ataru started complaining about her, saying she was annoying for always waking him up with violence and electrocuting him all the time. He wanted to be free like before, which angered Lum. She did not let Ataru see the gift she had made. Then she left. The next morning, Ataru's mother woke him for school, and he noticed Lum was not there. At school, Lum did not appear, which made Ataru feel free to chase girls. That afternoon, his mother asked about Lum, but there was still no news. Ataru went back to his room and saw the doll Lum had left for him. Never before had he felt so empty. The next day, he got up early on his own, went to school without flirting with girls, and stood by the window staring outside. A friend noticed the Lum doll he carried in his pocket. Shutaro was convinced that Lum had left Ataru, and even admired her for having put up with him for so long. Ataru suspected that Shutaro had kidnapped Lum, but he did not know either. Ataru had to admit that Lum had disappeared, so Shutaro mobilized his forces to look for her. Ataru ran to all the places he used to go with Lum, and memories of her began to surface in his mind. He began to regret and cried under the tree Lum had noticed once. At that moment, Lum was busy with her parents preparing paperwork, since her passport had expired, so Lum had to go apply for it again. She left the doll because it contained a microphone that allowed her to hear Ataru's voice. She heard that Ataru was crying because he missed her, so the next day, Lum returned to be with Ataru. Although she still pretended to be fine, Lum now understood Ataru's feelings better than she ever had before. The new year had arrived, and today, Ataru walked with Lum along the commercial street when suddenly a handkerchief flew in his face. Ataru smelled the scent and realized some girl had dropped it, so he ran out to return it. A girl hunter's sense of smell led him to an ox cart guarded by someone in black. He called the owner of the cart to return the handkerchief, and the girl told him to come closer to the front. Then, she extended a skeletal arm to scare Ataru, making him panic and run away. When he reached school, Ataru told Shutaro, but Shutaro did not believe a demon would appear in broad daylight. But while sitting in class, Shutaro reconsidered what Ataru had said and found it strangely familiar to his own family. During lunch, even from the cafeteria below, there were two people dressed in black who walked in front and deployed a red carpet for their lady to walk on. She then entered Ataru's class and ran toward Shutaro. The whole class asked Shutaro about their relationship, and the girl said she was engaged to him. The girls immediately got angry and piled around Shutaro, while Ataru wanted to help the girl escape from Shutaro. But Shutaro explained that it was Ryoko, his younger sister. Ataru also realized she was the one who had scared him that morning. Ryoko said she came to bring food to Shutaro, but the lunchbox was from Monday, and today was already Thursday. Since the ox cart took a long time to travel, the food had spoiled and gone bad. Shutaro refused to eat it, which made Ryoko ask what his 3 days without school were for. Ataru decided to step forward and eat the box to make Ryoko happy, even though the whole class warned him he could get poisoned by it. But Loom and Ryoko were anxious to feed him. Shutaro asked his sister to stay away from Ataru, but she ignored him because her brother did not value her efforts as Ataru did. Shutaro was willing to let his sister get close to anyone except Ataru. However, Ataru now also started calling Shutaro brother-in-law, although Shutaro would never accept Ataru due to his terrible personality. But Ryoko made her subordinates put Shutaro in a locker, which triggered his fear of the dark and closed spaces. He looked very scared. The boys finally discovered Shutaro's weakness, while the girls found it charming, as it awakened their maternal instincts. Ryoko began to accept Ataru, but Shutaro believed his sister was still naive and did not yet know how terrible Ataru really was. Shutaro threatened that if Ataru ever went to his house, he would have it out with him. But not much later, Ataru was still invited to Shutaro's house, with two girls following behind, and, additionally, Sakura also arrived. Then Ten and Oyuki also came because they had passed by Lum's house and learned she would attend the New Year's party there, so they joined as well. Seeing so many people, Shutaro had no choice but to allow Ataru to enter the house despite his deep feelings of intense dislike. Shutaro's house had an elevator in the front yard to facilitate entry for servants. Shutaro had no idea what would happen next because Ryoko was in charge of organizing this year's New Year's party. Ryoko then used a loudspeaker to welcome everyone and told them to enter as the food was already prepared. Once inside, the group saw arrows on the ground and followed them. They were led to a room and had to sit on cushions of their choice. Immediately after, Ten and Ataru fell out of the room while the others were pushed out. Ten and Ataru were taken by a conveyor belt underneath to another place, while the others were led to a separate spot by Ryoko's guards. Ten and Ataru were taken back to the front door and had to follow again. But Ten did not like following rules, so he went in the opposite direction and ended up being caught, tied, and removed from the game by guards. Ataru then proceeded and reached a room with Shutaro, Lum, and Shinobu. Shutaro's grandfather came to offer them tea, but after they drank it, he revealed that the tea was mixed with a paralyzing drug. Only Lum was not affected by the drug. As for Ataru, he seemed to be already used to it, so when he saw Ryoko pass, he still tried to crawl after her, only to end up falling into the carp pond and being pulled out by a group of people dressed in black who then gave him a change of clothes. Meanwhile, Lum reached a room where she found Rei and Sakura. Lum was eliminated quickly, as she could not eat as fast as the other two. Elsewhere, Shutaro and Shinobu went together and met Shutaro's father, who locked Shutaro in a dark room. But since Shinobu was with him, he was not too afraid. The two then managed to trick and trap Shutaro's father in the dark room so they could move on. It was then revealed that Shutaro's entire family was playing a board game, with the mansion itself as the board and Ataru's group as the game pieces. Shutaro fell into a space where he had to be chased by a monster, so the bodyguards smeared him with food sent to lure Rei to go after him. Meanwhile, Lum had to stop to wait for a cow to cross the road. Oyuki later met with Ataru, and both received New Year's lucky money envelopes from Shutaro's grandfather. Thinking it was money, they opened them, but only found 2 iron weights instead. Oyuki insisted that, in Earth culture, lucky money must contain real money. Although Shutaro's grandfather claimed he was joking, Oyuki was not amused because lucky money must contain money without fail. The group faced many challenges, and just as they were about to reach the finish line at the end of the day, Ryoko played a prank on them by launching Ataru, Shutaro, and Shinobu into the sky in a rocket, which exploded into fireworks, ending the event without any real winner. Not much later, Ataru's parents were happy to have Lum around to try on party clothes to take pictures. They were happy to have a daughter, which made Ataru get in a bad mood and ask for forgiveness from the family for not being the daughter they wanted. He then left the house frustrated and found a boy in the mailbox, whom he took inside to show everyone. Lum recognized him as her cousin Ten and was surprised he had made it there. The boy explained he had asked the post office to send him, so he still had postage marks on his body. The group then went to Sakura's house to celebrate the new year, and Ten accompanied them. He immediately flew toward Ataru and asked him if he really was Lum's boyfriend, saying he would not accept it. Seeing that Ataru annoyed him, Ten blew fire at him. Ten won Sakura over. This prompted Ataru to imitate him, which backfired. Ran then appeared working as a shrine maiden, and Ten recognized her immediately. Ran tried to pretend she did not know Ten to hide her identity, but Lum insisted on provoking her, forcing Ran to hint at one of Lum's shameful secrets so she would shut up. The group then played a card game, but Ataru kept using it as an excuse to touch the girl's hands, which made Ten spit fire to prevent him from acting according to his intentions. Later, Ten showed off his ability to fly and was praised by everyone except Ataru, who mocked him and got a spit of fire in his face again. Ataru went to cool off in the water when Ran approached and expressed sympathy, saying Lum was spoiling that child too much. She tried to take advantage of the moment and kiss Ataru, but Ten again spit fire to stop them. Furious, Ataru grabbed a frying pan to chase Ten. Thanks to the pan, he could block the fire and charge directly at Ten, forcing Lum to protect him. Sakura ended up throwing Ataru into the carp pond, and Lum scolded him for being childish and picking a fight with a child. However, Ten slowly began to feel attracted to Sakura. The next day, back at Ataru's house, Ten had taken over his study desk. Ataru still tried to provoke him even though Lum advised him not to pick a fight with a child. Lum asked Ten what he was doing, and he replied that he was writing a letter. After asking Lum to translate it, both discovered that Ten wanted to write a love letter. Ataru offered to be Ten's love advisor, as he was very good at romance, but in reality, he was setting a trap for Ten. When Sakura reached home and unexpectedly received the letter, she read it and found it full of vulgar and dirty language as if it were a harassment letter. She decided to go meet and give a lesson to whoever had written it. At the meeting place, Ataru was surprised that Sakura appeared anyway, but he had a plan and quickly pushed Ten to go forward. Curiously, Sakura completely forgave Ten because she was unable to hit a child. Ataru had even planned Ten's whole excursion, and the first stop was a couple's cafe. Since Sakura could not take a child to such a place, she took Ten to another cafe nearby. Little Ten broke into tears because he had made plans that Sakura did not like, so she decided she would go with him later. Right after, the two went to the movies, but it turned out to be a somewhat adult-themed film. When Ten cried again after she refused, Sakura reluctantly agreed to go in with him, only to realize it was quite a silly movie, and Ten got bored and sleepy quickly. However, Lum raised her voice and exposed them, which led Sakura to discover both of them. She kicked them out of the theater for not being old enough to watch adult content. Suspecting Ataru was behind Ten's plans all day, she was convinced it was his plan after Lum accidentally revealed the rest of the schedule when Ten woke up. That night, Ten sat and confessed his feelings to Sakura, but Ataru noticed she was wearing a ring, which meant someone had already proposed to her. Ten realized he had been rejected, but instead of accepting it, he blamed Ataru and blew fire at him. Sometime later, the teachers held a meeting and began to investigate the food establishments frequented by students. A student learned of this and ran to tell the whole class that the teachers were about to launch a week of enforcement against snacks. Of course, Ataru and the rest of the class refused to accept such a dictatorship and decided to rebel. The next day, just before the lunch break, both teachers and students were prepared to go to war. They prepared for a very intense fight. The school bell rang, and the students shot toward the school gate as if they were crossing a border. But Shutaro and some others sided with the teachers to counter the students' campaign. However, such a small number could not stop all the students. Ataru and some others climbed over the wall to escape. Next came the second obstacle they observed, the usual shops frequented by students, but they saw no guards. So they tried to enter and asked if their teacher was around. The shopkeeper said no, but in fact the teacher was hidden inside, waiting to catch anyone who touched the food. When they took out the noodles, the shopkeeper signaled Ataru to run. He understood, and immediately the teacher jumped out, forcing the group to flee. Many ran away fast. Other students soon joined them, as other shops were also under surveillance. They were blocked by Shutaro's group, but the girls pleaded with him until he gave in and let them pass. The boys took the opportunity to cross-dress and sneak past. The whole group then reached an old woman's shop, but Sakura was already there and had eaten all the food. The teacher continued the chase, but was soon arrested by a detective who called the police, suspecting he harassed the students. That detective worked for the business district, and since the students were valuable customers, they were eager to help. The students split up to distract the teachers. Ataru's group was led through the back door by a shop owner, where a teacher had already been tied up. Shinobu worked there part-time, and, according to the owner, that was the safest place for the students. Lum then asked for a super spicy cake, and just as Ataru started flirting with Shinobu, she shoved the whole spicy cake into his mouth. Ataru, in a panic, ran out. Shutaro's group saw Ataru running and fled in the opposite direction. Along the way, two teachers were resting. Shutaro collided with the older one and kept running, and Ataru collided with the same old teacher. The younger teacher nearby assumed the old teacher had heroically sacrificed himself and urged the others to follow his example and punish the students. Although in reality the old teacher was fine, nonetheless the students were determined to fight just to be able to eat. The two sides faced off all afternoon, and the first day of the week against snacking ended in a draw. A few days later, Ten went out to eat again with a group of older girls. Ataru became jealous because the boy was being pampered by all the girls. The three girls then asked about the person who had proposed to Sakura, and she revealed it was Tsubami, a licensed and certified spiritualist. It seemed like a perfect match, but Ten wanted to make sure Sakura's destiny was actually aligned with Tsubami's. The boy pulled out a device containing an announcement of the prophetic eye, a tool that helps users see who their soulmate really is. The boy ordered it and showed it to Sakura for her to try. Yukai, but she did not believe. When Shinobu looked at it, she was frozen and could not believe what she had just seen. Lum also tried, but the other half that appeared was Rei, while Ran also looked and saw Ataru in it. None of them dared to say it out loud, knowing that if they did, the other would become furious. Sakura noticed the three girls were silent, so she asked them what they saw. Shinobu confessed she saw the image of Tsubame. So Sakura also had to try it and saw both Shutaro and Ataru in it. At that moment, the two had met Tsubame outside and all entered together to see what was happening, only to be caught by Sakura. Then she scolded Shutaro and Ataru because she truly believed she would marry both. This made Lum and Ran realize what was happening, so the girls began to fight each other to reclaim their rightful lovers. Meanwhile, Tsubame was being led by Shinobu toward his supposed destination, but little Ten, who had left earlier, then heard the seller say they had accidentally delivered a defective product, and the defective version would show the person who, if married, would bring misfortune. The authentic item was delivered later, but by then it seemed too late. Not much later, a young man carrying a ladder appeared at the school and climbed it. He warned the teacher not to interfere or something would happen, but the only thing that happened was that he fell off the ladder. Meanwhile, Ataru and Shutaro were in the middle of a baseball match. Ataru was losing the game on purpose in exchange for 10 pool tickets. When he threw the ball, Shutaro managed to catch it, but a foul was called, and the ball flew and hit the young man who was hidden in the tree. He fell and even literally swallowed the ball. Shutaro then informed everyone that it was Toby Maru, son of the main sports equipment manufacturing group. Shutaro's and Toby Maru's families were rivals and had been full of resentment for a long time, so the two had faced each other many times. On one occasion, they faced each other in a baseball game, but instead of playing normally, they threw the equipment at each other's heads. Shutaro won because a bat caused more damage than a ball. After that, Toby Maru went up the mountain to train, but almost 20 matches ended in a draw, so this time he returned again for the rematch. However, Shutaro was in the middle of the school's internal tournament, so he had to postpone the duel. Ryoko suddenly arrived on horseback and felt it was a pity that Toby Maru had come from so far just to be ignored. So she wanted Ataru to let Toby Maru join the team, since she had feelings for him for a long time. When the two boys heard this, they gave Toby Maru a beating. But Ryoko's love was one-sided because Toby Maru hated girls due to Ryoko mocking him since he was a child. Ryoko and Shutaro then made a bet. If Shutaro won, Ryoko would give up her feelings for Toby Maru. Ataru did not accept putting someone on the team without knowing his skills, so he tested Toby Maru, who indeed turned out to be quite bad. Still, Ataru accepted him anyway because his goal was to lose. The score was tied at that moment, so Ataru's team was not allowed to score. Ataru sent Toby Maru to bat, and indeed, he was terrible, but Ryoko expected him to hit the ball no matter what, so the men in black made their move. They stopped Shutaro and took the ball directly to Toby Maru to hit. They also blocked anyone who tried to sabotage Toby Maru, so Ataru had to try to stop him at the final base. However, that base had already been tampered with a hole dug by Ryoko. Ataru tried to touch Toby Maru with the ball, but he ended up swallowing it and then vomited a lot more balls, making the game end in another draw that required extra innings. Not much later, Toby Maru hid under a bridge inside Shutaro's house, looking for a way to challenge him again, but Shutaro was absent that day, so Ryoko took her pet octopuses for a walk instead. When Toby Maru saw someone pass, he threw a weight and a letter over the bridge. Ryoko received the letter and thought it was a love letter from Toby Maru. One of the octopuses, angry because the weight had been thrown at his head, returned it and hit Toby Maru in the head. Shutaro arrived at that moment, having been locked in a concrete block by Ryoko since last night. He noticed Toby Maru's letter and forbade Ryoko from continuing to have feelings for Toby Maru, but she refused and detonated a bomb. Ataru and his family were having a relaxed Sunday when Ryoko called Ataru asking for help as her brother was chasing her. Ataru accepted and they took her away, while Lum chased them and found a letter on the ground that revealed the place where she could find Ataru. Ataru, at that moment, still thought they had brought him to protect Ryoko from Shutaro. Meanwhile, Lum had arrived at Toby Maru's house and saw him in trouble, as he had been carried away by the wind and got stuck. Lum grabbed him by the leg and dropped him. Just then, Toby Maru realized Ryoko had also arrived and thought she came to stop their duel. Toby Maru was then dragged to the ground by Ryoko's men, while Lum tried to remind Ataru they were only using him. A person in black then revealed himself as Shutaro, determined not to hand over his sister. Toby Maru, who had always wanted to defeat Shutaro and had trained hard for it, was recognized by Shutaro, who promised to let him marry his sister if he won. Ataru had been waiting for that sentence and jumped to grab Shutaro's sword and threw him away. Shutaro tried to regain his balance, but Lum hit him with a lightning bolt, making a wooden post hit his face. Lum won the fight, but Ataru had to flee with Ryoko because he knew Lum would not like her. However, Shutaro soon returned and kicked Ataru out. Lum caught him in the air, and Ryoko, not wanting to bother Ataru anymore, jumped herself, landing right on Toby Maru's face. She believed Toby Maru had sacrificed himself to save her. Shutaro was even more mistaken, even though Toby Maru tried to explain he felt nothing romantic for Ryoko. When Shutaro mentioned the love letter, Lum pulled out the letter she had picked up earlier. Toby Maru thought it was a duel letter, together, but it was written on nice paper like a love letter. Shutaro then wanted to end the duel, but although Ryoko said she wanted to help Toby Maru, she ended up causing him even more trouble. She handed him an axe that he threw upward, cutting a lot of wood. She tried to help him dodge by throwing an anchor at his head. When she tried to give him a weapon, she threw an entire weight at his neck, leaving him unconscious while trying to flee. Shutaro recognized Toby Maru's efforts, although he had suffered constantly because of Ryoko, and decided to let them be together. On a beautiful day, Lum found Ran shopping to visit Ray. Lum intentionally approached to ask her about it, but met with an aggressive response from Ran, so she gave up. When Ran took food to Ray, he devoured it and then turned to kiss her on the cheek, which made her very happy. Later, she returned happy to tell Lum. When Lum visited Ran's house, she saw she received her so cheerfully that she suspected a plot, but Ran simply said she wanted to make peace and told her Ray had kissed her. Lum was truly happy for her, which made Ran realize that Lum was really a good friend. When Lum returned home, she found Ray had come to see her. Ten told her Ray came for Lum, but Lum believed he was playing both sides with Ran. Ran then appeared and was frozen to see Ray with Lum, thinking Lum still had feelings for Ray. Ran mentioned the kiss Ray gave her, but he did not remember. Ten then gave Ran a cake to cheer her up, which she ate whole, leaving some crumbs in her mouth. That was when it became clear why Ray had kissed her, but Ran did not realize, so she continued happy about it. A few days later, Ran invited Lum to go out to eat and remember old times. When they were girls, Ran once invited Lum to stay the night. Ran had peed in bed before, so her mother was very strict about it so it would not happen again. That night, Lum needed to go to the bathroom, but instead of going, she swapped with Ran, and the next morning, Ran was scolded again for getting the bed wet. She tried to explain it was Lum, but Lum denied it, so Ran was scolded even more. Lum felt guilty and promised to give Ran the doll she liked next time Ran went to her house. The following night, when Ran stayed at Lum's house, she did the same thing again. The next morning, when Ran's mother went to pick her up, Lum's mother was hanging the wet sheets outside, exposing the incident again, and Ran was scolded once more. But at least Lum kept her promise and gave Ran the doll she liked most. Not much after that, Lum invited Ran to go tease dogs, saying whoever lost the race would have to treat the winner to ice cream. Ran was afraid because she could not fly like Lum, but Lum dragged her through the air while being chased. However, Lum made a slight mistake in the flight direction, which made Ran slam her face against a rock. Lum promised to treat Ran to ice cream, but when it came time to pay, she insisted on splitting the bill because Ran ran behind her and lost the bet. There was another occasion when Lum went to Ran's house to play darts. Ran accidentally hit her mother's favorite doll. Lum tried to take the blame for her, but since the color of the darts could not be changed in time, Ran's mother thought Ran had forced Lum to take the blame. Lum also felt she was the reason Ran had become so mean now, so she decided to reflect on her actions. But upon leaving, she forgot to pay again, so Ran had to pay once more, which made her hate Lum even more. A few days later, Lum was jogging by Sakura's house and saw her burning something. Shinobu also passed by, so the two went in to check. They discovered Sakura was roasting reptiles to make medicines. Neither was interested, but when they discovered Sakura could make a love potion, both wanted to help. They then went down to the basement with Sakura to make the medicine and created 2 pills that looked like candy. Lum went home to give one to Ataru, but he was sleeping and somehow still resisted. He woke up and did not believe what Lum tried to feed him, but when he learned it was a gift from Sakura, he ate it immediately. After that, Ataru started saying sweet things to Lum, but once outside, he started saying nonsense. The worst was when he met his mother and claimed he was adopted and wanted to go look for his real parents. His mother did not believe a word and assumed he had eaten something bad again. Shinobu also received a visit from Ataru, who spoke more nonsense. She realized then she had made the wrong medicine. It was a Babble pill. Another day, Ataru's group invited each other to the beach, but there were big waves and swimming was forbidden. All the beach stalls were closed. They unexpectedly met a strange father and son who shouted at the sea and resisted the clash of waves. The group approached them and learned the father and son owned a coastal shop that had belonged to the family for 3 generations, and the son, Ryunoske, was next in line. But since there were no customers after summer, the business declined and Ryunoske wanted to look for another job. The two had nothing in common, as the father wanted to run the shop year-round. The worst was winter, when thick snow meant no customers. Ataru and Shutaro decided to leave, thinking it was not their business. As they left, they heard that Ryunoske was actually a girl forced by her father to live as a boy. Their womanizing instincts activated, and both boys wanted to go back and help. However, Ryunoske had been living as a boy for too long, becoming hot-tempered and detesting physical contact. Later, she dealt a punch to her old man and wished she could live as a normal girl. Ataru and Shutaro realized they could not make her change her mind and decided to leave again. The father then offered the group a free meal, asking them to help convince Ryunoske. The group proposed chaining them together, but they kept fighting so much they destroyed the whole shop. Ataru finally admitted there was no hope and left. A week later, Ataru and Lum met the father and daughter again. They no longer had a shop and had come to a high school to do business, which turned out to be Ataru's. The father said he would let Ryunoske wear a sailor uniform if she managed to beat him. Ryunosuke took off her shirt, which made Ataru lose control and interfere, making Ryunoske get knocked out. She then vented her anger against Ataru and had to wear the male uniform again. However, whether dressed as a girl or boy, everyone liked Ryunoske, which made Shutaro feel threatened. Shutaro held a meeting with Ataru's group to devise a plan, and they decided Ryunoske should wear a girl's uniform. The four then went to the father to ask for the uniform, but he said if they wanted it, they had to beat him. The four grabbed hammers and took him down, then stole the uniform. When they took it to Ryunoske, she was very happy, but Ryunoske still did not want to put it on because she wanted to defeat the old man herself and earn it without depending on anyone else. Besides, Ryunoske also felt she was still missing something, and when Ran entered, Ryunoske noticed Ran was the ideal model she aspired to. Ryunoske then went to ask Lum for advice. Ran later received a friendship letter but mistook it for a love letter, so she went to ask Lum. Lum pointed out it was Ryunoske and mentioned Ryunoske was a girl, but Ran did not believe it and thought Lum only tried to diminish her popularity. That afternoon, Ryunoske observed Ran and learned the first lesson, do not rush. Then they went to eat together, and Ryunoske closely observed all of Ran's actions and gestures to imitate them. But Ataru and Lum were seen by Ran, and when Ran questioned Lum, she claimed she only followed Ataru. When they went rowing, Ryunoske wanted Ran to try rowing, but when Ataru saw them being close, he rowed to interrupt them. That night, Ran scolded Lum, but at least she would not give up until she could wear the girl's uniform. A few days later, Ryunoske broke her piggy bank to take out money to buy women's underwear, but the amount did not seem to be much. Meanwhile, Shinobu returned home and felt she was being followed. After turning around several times, the three stalkers became aggressive and chased her, so she ended up staying with Ryunoske for safety. Ryunoske then asked Shinobu for advice on buying underwear, as she had tried to enter a shop and found the items were not cheap and she did not even have a tenth of the money. Shinobu suggested ways to get discounts, but then the stalkers appeared and asked for help. Shinobu thought of her boss, but after seeing his face, she rejected him immediately. The three did not want their boss to have a broken heart, so they asked Ryunoske and Shinobu to pretend to be a couple so they could take pictures and show them to their boss so he would desist. The next day, Shinobu told the Ataru group the whole matter. That afternoon, Shinobu and Ryunoske pretended to be a couple on a date. The three boys followed them to take pictures, but Ryunoske got a bit too into the role because they had promised her a discount voucher for lingerie. Shinobu had to remind Ryunoske to tone it down because they were only acting. While they ate, Ataru appeared to ruin things, but Lum was not going to let him flirt with Shinobu. The three boys had to move Ryunoske and Shinobu to another place to take more pictures. After taking a picture at the fountain, the boss himself suddenly appeared to look for Shinobu. The discount coupon flew away in the wind. Ryunosuke had to choose between the two, but Shinobu kicked the boss out with a punch herself. However, the coupon was picked up by Cherry's cat and burned in the fire. One of the boys then had to help calm his boss by taking the bag of products Ataru had prepared and pretending it was from Shinobu to appease him. The boss started eating it right in front of Ryunosuke, and Ataru's mother noticed her things were missing. While Ataru's family had dinner, a star suddenly fell into their house and destroyed everything. He claimed to be the wish star and said they were the lucky poor family selected this time. Ataru's parents did not believe it and thought it was a scam, so they ignored him. He did not insist and was about to leave, but Ataru's father asked him to clean the mess, so he told him to write the request and put it in his mouth. The house was restored, and only then did they believe he could really grant wishes. The family then began to think about what wish to ask. Cherry spent a wish just to get a plate of noodles, so the family only had one wish left. Ataru wanted a harem. Lum wanted to fix Ataru's habits. Ataru told his mother to discuss it with his father and said he would take the star to his room, but she told him to leave the wish rod and go wherever he wanted. When they went up to the room, Ataru had secretly cut star-shaped paper to cheat, and Lum also fought with him over it. But then both realized the paper was useless. The whole family then gathered to discuss, but still could not agree on anything. Since the star friend would stay until morning, they had to reach a consensus soon. After watching TV, the star friend went to get something to drink. While the family decided to draw lots after a while, Ataru's father won, and his wish was to start life over. They then went to look for the star friend, but he had drunk a beer and passed out drunk. They tried to wake him because morning was approaching, but since he did not wake up, Cherry wrote the wish that the star friend wake up and leave, as the three wishes had already been used. Cherry believed that was best, as no one would have to fight over it anymore. A few days later, Lum returned to her spaceship and started preparing something, which turned out to be a lipstick. She tested it and then took it to Ataru, asking him to also apply it, but he refused. When Ten arrived, he accidentally smeared himself with the lipstick and Lum's lips got stuck to his face. Ataru realized the lipstick acted like a magnet and kept it. The next day, at school, Ataru wanted to test the lipstick on someone, and the first suitable person was Ryunoske. He let Ryunoske try it, and Ryunoske seemed to like it, but then Ataru also applied it to his own lips to attract Ryunoske. Ryunoske quickly dealt him a punch to stop him. Lum later entered the classroom and was attracted to Ataru due to the lipstick's magnetism, and the boys had to separate them. Lum reassessed the situation, confused by how it turned out that way, but the girls quickly noticed and took the lipstick from Ataru. Then they wanted to apply it to Shutaro, although he resisted. He secretly wanted an accidental kiss with Lum, so he accepted. At that moment, others tried to keep Lum and Ataru apart. Thus, the two boys, declared enemies, ended up together. The other boys in class also excitedly tried the lipstick, but when the teacher entered, the lipstick flew toward him and stuck to his head, making everyone attracted toward the teacher. Ten also entered and was attracted to Ryunoske, who ran out with a large group chasing her from behind. Ryunoske then realized how terrifying the lipstick was and vowed never to touch it again. A few days later, Ataru's class agreed to organize a dark stew party where everyone would eat together in the dark. When Lum asked what that was, they simply explained it consisted of throwing anything into the pot and eating in the dark. Lum found it interesting and decided to prepare some test dishes for Ataru to try at home. But when Ataru saw the food, he sensed something was wrong and tried to flee. Lum chased him and forced him to taste it. A dog that bit a piece of food that fell found it so spicy that even the dog could not stand it. Ataru knew he had to avoid it at all costs, but Lum tricked him and put a piece in his mouth. His lips swelled so much afterwards that he could not speak. That night, Ataru asked Lum if she disliked any food, and she mentioned she hated an alien vegetable. Ataru then asked Ten for the vegetable and tried to trick him into buying it, but Ten said he needs 10 days, while the stew was in 3 days. So Ataru decided to take Lum out to eat everything possible. But after eating noodles, Lum admitted that her taste buds did not really work and that she only enjoyed eating with Ataru. However, when a nearby table ordered something with garlic, Lum left quickly, and Ataru realized she hated garlic. He stole the garlic dish and stuffed himself with it, thinking he could use garlic breath to scare her, but Lum had prepared a deodorant spray to keep him away. On the day of the stew party, most people threw edible food into the pot. Ataru added garlic, Lum added spicy seasoning, and the mysterious purple lump she had made before. Ten also returned early after meeting a street vegetable vendor and added the alien vegetable to the pot. When the teacher arrived, the vegetable clung to Ataru's mouth. Lum hated it. A few days later, Shutaro invited the whole group to his house to show them the octopuses his family raised. Since the family symbol was an octopus, they treated them like family members, and the most precious octopus was kept in their cold room. Since this octopus species only lives in Antarctica and is an extremely rare specimen, it requires an appropriate environment for its captivity. Although said to be rare, it is really nothing more than a blue octopus, which led Ataru to think it is very inferior compared to the grilled octopus sold at food stalls. Hearing this, the blue octopus felt hurt and fled. Shutaro's entire house had to close its doors to search for it, and Shutaro held Ataru's group responsible for what they had said. Shutaro announced a reward. The whole group then ventured into the tropical jungle to find the octopus, as everyone wanted the reward of their choice. However, there were many dangerous animals there, like leeches, crocodiles, black panthers, and other risky creatures. Suddenly, someone from the group was dragged by some unknown creature, and Ataru, along with 2 others, decided to ignore it and move forward. Meanwhile, Shinobu's group found the boy who was dragged and discovered he was covered in ink. As for Ataru's group, they discovered Shutaro's bodyguard had been attacked by something. The 3 were about to find some random creature to trick Shutaro when they heard Shinobu scream. When they ran back, they saw that Shinobu's group had already been captured by the octopus. Shutaro revealed they grow with heat. Ataru and the boys then launched an attack against the octopus, but it had no effect, and they were also captured. The octopus then tore Ryunosuke's shirt, so the boys purposely provoked it to lure it further away. But Lum dealt an electric shock to the octopus, accidentally electrocuting everyone nearby as well. Shutaro then appeared to try to convince the octopus to return. The octopus hugged Shutaro so tight he almost suffocated. Another day, little Ten, bored at Cherry's house, went to school to look for Lum. When he reached class, he saw Ataru having lunch early and asked what was in his lunchbox. Ataru explained it was pickled plum and tricked Ten into trying it. As soon as Ten tried it, he got drunk and started spitting fire at random. The whole class thought Ataru had given alcohol to the child, so he borrowed a lunchbox from a friend and gave pickled plum to Lum to prove his point. At first, Lum only found it sour, but after a while, she also got drunk, started to undress, and began to launch electric shocks everywhere. She demanded more pickled plum, so everyone had to give her some. But then she started flying everywhere while the whole class had to rush to find Ten, who was even more dangerous than Lum. Shutaro chased Lum, which made her cry because Ataru preferred to look for Ten instead of chasing her. The teacher saw that scene and decided to inspect all students, suspecting someone brought alcohol to school. Shutaro was willing to be searched if the teacher apologized. Meanwhile, Ataru was about to invite his friend to sneak away to eat, but when Lum passed, both had to hide, only to be singed by Ten's fire breath from behind. Sakura passed by chance and provided first aid to those burned by Ten. When Ten saw Sakura, he got excited and blew fire again, forcing Ataru and the boys to protect her. While trying to take advantage and touch her, they were all kicked out by her. Old Cherry arrived and gave them alcohol to rub their burns, but Lum snatched the bottle and flew toward class. The teacher, seeing the bottle, was very happy and demanded the boys dance without clothes as they promised. Since only Shutaro made the vow, he was forced to carry it out. Meanwhile, Cherry still tried to recover his bottle. One day, Ten walked through a mushroom forest when he found someone unconscious. He went down to check, but the mushrooms knocked him out. A few days later, Oyuki asked Lum if she had seen Ten, as she had something to discuss with her. Lum did not not know, but returning to Ataru's house, she found Ten there. Ten explained he had lost something very important, his chain that he always carried with him. They then went to see Oyuki, who showed them something sent to them, a videotape. In it appeared 3 people who claimed to be the delinquent gang of Galactic Middle School. One was the person Ten found in the mushroom forest. The trio claimed they were also strong, but had never been challenged. They believed the group was powerful. That was why they stole Ten's chain to provoke her to fight. However, neither Oyuki nor Lum remembered ever being delinquents. But in reality, the reason was that both followed Ten and got involved with her in shady activities, so they put them all in the same bag. Ten then decided she would go have a confrontation to reclaim what belonged to her. Oyuki also resolved not to let things go and would follow Ten. At this point, the 3 middle school girls began to worry because Ten, Lum, and Oyuki had much reputation and were very strong. The 3 began to regret, but since there was still no guarantee they would lose, they went to ask a computer to find the best strategy. Meanwhile, Oyuki and Lum had already chased Ten. They wanted her to pay. They reached the meeting point, which turned out to be an Earth restaurant. After eating, Ten asked if they were going to fight and where her chain was. They pulled out the chain and ran. Lum's group chased them to recover it, but the 3 girls split up. The pink-haired girl disappeared and brandished the chain when Lum hit her with a hammer, forcing her to reveal herself. The girl dressed in snakeskin took the chain and ran. She threw it to her partner, who pretended to faint, but it was just a trick to help the snakeskin girl escape. She had the ability to shed skin and hide. At that moment, I realized that group were delinquents, but all their tricks served to flee and avoid being abused. Lum managed to grab the chain. Ten arrived, and Lum was worried that if Ten found out the chain was broken, she would go crazy. They did not know what the chain really meant to Ten. At that moment, a flying robot chef arrived and stepped on Lum's group, but luckily, there was a hole under them, so it did not crush them. Lum now feared Ten would take Ataru as revenge for the broken chain. The robot ran out of fuel, so the 3 girls bought salt and refueled it. Then it spat out a bunch of chains and flew away. The girls thought they could use the bunch of chains to trick Ten, but she insisted her chain was unique. Then she made Lum heat the chains and asked Oyuki to freeze them quickly. Normal chains would break, but Ten's remained intact. Once her chain was recovered, Ten left in peace. When Lum reached home, she learned the chain was actually the key to Ten's house. But just as she entered, the 3 girls appeared through the back door, claiming the chain they had was the real one and demanding a rematch. Ten ignored them, too exhausted after having been away from home for 10 days. A few days later, Lum's group met again, this time because Oyuki revealed the planet of sea urchins was about to be urbanized, and the secret they had hidden there was about to be exposed. Years ago, when Lum's group of 4 still attended Galactic Elementary School together, they had a robot teacher named CA0-2. He was the only teacher who could control their mischief. They were quite wild. Ten did not like a teacher giving him lessons, so he made everyone play pranks. They set up a pulley at the door and tied an extremely heavy weight, intending to drop it on him when he entered. But when he entered, the weight did not affect him at all. Only when he bowed did he realize they played a prank and punished Lum's group. Oyuki did not participate, and Ran was dragged into it unintentionally. Ataru and Shutaro heard that and confirmed the group really had been naughty. Ran still looked dragged into it despite not wanting to, while Oyuki never joined or tried to stop them. The group went on to try more tricks, like using chains for Lum to shock the teacher and turn him off temporarily, although he still collapsed on top of them. They used a rocket. They fired a rocket at their teacher, but he came out completely unharmed and got so angry he went after them. The 4 then got into a flying car and escaped from school, but he kept chasing them until they fled to the sea urchin star. They flew erratically until he got stuck there, and since no one lived on that planet, they had left him there all this time. And now, the whole group could only hope everything had calmed down, but with that old man's spiteful nature, there was no way it definitely was not so. For them, a long time may have passed, but for him, time meant nothing. Immediately, the tall guy appeared and gave Lum's group a beating just to vent, then flew away, and Ran, whether she liked it or not, had to take the hit. A few days later, Ryoko unexpectedly made a voodoo doll. Then she took it to Shutaro's room to test it. At first, Shutaro did not believe it, but when he began to experience the same effects as the doll, he began to worry. Ryoko realized how dangerous the doll was, so she decided to entrust it to someone else to keep it, and that person was Ataru. He did not know what the doll was for, but decided to watch it for Ryoko. The next morning, Ataru went to school with the doll hidden inside his shirt. During a break, Ataru fell asleep and the doll hit the desk, making Shutaro affected. He suspected something happened to the doll. Later, during gym class, Ataru and Shutaro did push-ups, and just as Ataru collapsed, Shutaro also suddenly collapsed. He felt very weird. During recess, Ataru accidentally bothered Shinobu and ended up pushed against a wall. Shutaro was also pushed, which made him even more suspicious that Ataru carried the doll. When Lum gave an electric shock to Ataru, Shutaro was convinced of his theory, but he had to recover the doll quietly because it seemed Ataru did not know what he was really doing. Then Ataru started fooling around and got into trouble, so Shutaro had to protect him. Later, Ataru climbed to the rooftop to play and was about to jump, forcing Shutaro to catch him, only to end up falling himself. Ataru was moved by Shutaro's act of kindness, but he then demanded what he wore around his neck. Ataru pulled out his wallet, but what Shutaro really meant was the doll. He wanted it back. Ataru was willing to hand it over if Shutaro told him what it was for. Then, one of Ryoko's bodyguards arrived and explained everything, so Ataru took the opportunity to torment Shutaro. That night, Shutaro returned home bitter and made a doll to take revenge on Ataru. The next day, at school, both used their dolls to torment each other, and in the end, neither won anything. They simply became the laughingstock of the whole class. Meanwhile, in space, a street vendor felt bored because his newly manufactured products did not sell. Suddenly, little Ten flew by, and the vendor offered to exchange a candy stick for a bottle. Ten accepted and made the exchange, deciding to give it to Lum. But while waiting for her return, Ten accidentally activated the bottle, which sucked Lum inside. Then she was miniaturized and was trapped inside the bottle and had to get out to see how to reverse the effect. To fix it, they needed an enlargement bottle, so she told Ten to go buy one immediately. He then ran into Ataru and thought it was his chance to win his love. She lied, saying she had a shrinking disease and needed his love to return to normal, but he ignored her and continued living as usual. After dinner, Ataru still found Lum annoying even when she was tiny. He even said it would be fine if she stayed small forever. But that night, while sleeping next to her, he tried not to crush her with his hand. The next day, Lum had to miss school and back. Ataru discovered the truth about Lum's state and locked her in a cage. But as soon as Ataru left, a cat sneaked in to catch Lum. Meanwhile, Ten asked about the bottle vendor and learned that due to low sales, the vendor was destroying all the bottles he had left by breaking them before sunset. So Ten shot off to stop the vendor, but the turtle told him he was too slow. So Ten went to look for a motorcycle to move faster. Ten later found Ataru and told him to bring Lum immediately because the situation was urgent. When Ataru reached home, he saw that Lum had been caught by the cat, but she was defending herself, so he had to climb to the roof to recover her. She did not trust Ataru, so he had to jump and grab her, and Ten arrived with the bike just in time to catch them. They had to race against the clock, but luckily the enlargement bottle was tough and could withstand several attacks from the vendor. Ataru managed to put Lum in the bottle and help her return to her normal size. Although Ataru used to hate Lum, he was glad she had returned to normal. A few days later, on the way home, Shinobu met a little fox being harassed by a pack of rabid dogs. She used a stick to drive them away, but when they did not back down, she took an entire log and charged fiercely. The dogs quickly fled, and Shinobu turned the fox over to the police. However, the officers got distracted, and the fox ended up escaping. The fox then followed Shinobu and saw how Ataru suddenly came out and hugged her. He wanted to help her. The fox wanted to protect her, but Shinobu was able to manage on her own. The next day, at school, the fox transformed into a mini Ataru to appear before Shinobu. When the rest of the class and the teacher arrived, they saw the mini Ataru cleaning the floor and thought the real Ataru was being unusually diligent that day. But then the real Ataru appeared, and the class suspected that one of them was an imposter. Of course, everyone knew which one was the real one, but they preferred to take it out on the Ataru they hated most. Ataru then tried to unmask the fox and forced him to reveal his true form. When the group tried to punish the fox, Shinobu protected him, knowing he only wanted to compensate her. After that, the fox posed as the teacher. Not much later, the business district and the principal decided to organize a contest to determine who was the school's beauty queen. With a prize of 150,000 yen, many people entered the contest. After the vote count, 8 names were selected. Next, these contestants were subjected to strength tests to move to the next round. Sakura, Shinobu, Lum, Ran, and Ryunoske all passed. Ryunoske's father initially tried to prevent her from participating in the contest, but seeing the prize money, he changed his mind and wanted her to win so he could rebuild his shop. Meanwhile, Ryunoske herself wanted to win to be recognized as a girl. The 5 girls were sent directly to the final, as Ataru was the one directing the contest. They went up to the ring, and Ataru announced beauty and intelligence. Everyone participated for the prize of 150,000 yen. Ataru then began the final round. The first test consisted of guessing the object inside a box. The 5 girls reached in. Lum guessed it was 10, but failed part of the answer. Ryunosuke immediately recognized a watermelon and won the first round. Ataru then presented the sponsor of the first round, a fruit shop. The second round consisted of retrieving candy using only provided objects. Sakura and Shinobu felt that was an insult to their intelligence, but Ryunosuke quickly arranged the objects and got the candy, winning the round. This round was sponsored by a candy shop and another furniture shop. The third round was a noodle eating contest, obviously sponsored by a noodle shop. All girls were very hungry. Sakura tried to restrain herself so as not to look like a glutton, but before she was full, the others had already collapsed. The judges gave her higher scores, placing her in the lead. In the next round, Ataru asked the girls to wear battle suits. All ended up wearing suits that looked like swimsuits. To Ryunoske, who originally wore a bikini, her father reminded her she was supposed to fight, not parade. So instead, she wrapped herself in bandages. Ran, realizing she was the weakest of all, resorted to tricks. She kissed the other 3 girls, and Lum immediately knew Ran had drained their energy. Thinking she was now the strongest in the ring, Ran believed she could defeat Lum. However, their true opponents were wild animals brought by Ataru, not each other. They fought. The sponsor this this time was the zoo, and the 5 contestants had to fight 5 wild beasts, but 3 of the girls had already lost their strength. The first match was between Lum and a tiger. Lum quickly lunged and hit the tiger's head, but it did not fall. She had to resort to her electric bite to finally knock it out. Next was a giant snake, so Sakura took over. The snake quickly wrapped her tightly, and her provocative pose ended up earning her extra points. The animal team and Shinobu wanted to change fighters, but Ataru had already been knocked unconscious by a gorilla. Shinobu had to enter the ring to stop the gorilla, but was thrown and landed in the bear's arms. She tried to pin it down but was not strong enough. He watched. Shutaro transformed and tried to jump in, but the gorilla ejected him instantly. Lum ran to help Sakura. Meanwhile, Ryunoske was thrown into the ring by her father and found herself face to face with the tiger, but it immediately knocked her to the ground. At that moment, Ran was about to flee, but a lion blocked her path and forced her back into the arena. The lion pinned her down, and Lum could not handle everything herself, so Lum suggested to Ran that she drain the animal's strength. However, Ran refused, so Lum had no choice but to ask Ataru for help. Ataru helped by cheating on Ran's behalf and hitting the lion on the head, which allowed Ran to run and kiss Sakura. Sakura regained her strength, punched the gorilla out, and escaped from the python. Then it was Shinobu, who was being crushed by a bear. She struggled, but Lum had to help Ran kiss Shinobu. After a while, Shinobu managed to lift the whole bear and throw it far away. Shinobu and Sakura then brought the gorilla and the bear and threw them at each other. Ran then tried to kiss Ryunoske, but Lum suddenly hit a tiger that flew across the arena, accidentally dragging Ran with it. Ryunoske tried to leave the arena, but her father prevented her. Ran ran after him to kiss him, but the girls tried to stop her. Lum had to release the python so it would chase the girls and help Ran kiss Ryunoske. Ryunosuke regained her strength and threw both Ran and the python back into the arena. They looked really very tired. The 5 girls then teamed up and knocked out the 5 animals. The judges ended up declaring the match a tie, as they had been so absorbed watching that they forgot to compute the final scores. As a result, the prize was split equally among the 5, but the prize turned out to be a physical object instead of cash, which angered Sakura. After the contest ended, others like Rei, Oyuki, and Ten also appeared. Meanwhile, Ataru and Loom had sneaked away to count the money, as Ataru had earned a decent amount from the event. Lum snatched the money and made Ataru fall on top of her. Lum then asked Ataru if she was now the queen of his heart. Just when the moment was turning romantic, Sakura and Shinobu appeared to ruin the mood, intending to give him a beating.